wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, she's done, let's go.
Yeah.
So I guess we have our 5 non-family members. Thank you
Right.
everyone for coming tonight. My name is Jonathan Daniels and I'm giving a speech. It's a persuasive speech, so I'm supposed to persuade you. And I hope by the end of it, it's not going to be too long, but I hope by the end of it, it's just logical. It's common sense. I shouldn't have to do any persuading, so we'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. The topic is, it's on alternative renewable energies, fossil fuels, the pros and cons. And so the title of it is Solar Power, What the Frack? Who in here has heard about fracking? All of us, okay, all right. So I don't have to get into all the nuts and bolts or just kind of what it is. It's simply you drill holes in the ground that are on Earth's crust. You can go miles and miles and miles. And you use hydraulic, the technology, hydraulic pressure. You put liquid into the Earth's crust and it gets into the cracks and it opens it up and it helps gases and oil flow easier and more. You get more of it as well, so it's lucrative. So anyway, that's what fracking and I guess a high kind of level type of scenario that we're talking about. Then there's, what I'm really interested in is the alternative renewable energy. And the pros outweigh the cons, well 12 to 6. So I mean, pretty simple to me at least, that when it comes to alternative energies compared to fracking, this makes sense, you know, when the numbers kind of prove, it just adds up to me. Numbers to me is very simple, very logical. So, not to mention, it seems like fracking is now related with earthquakes. Earthquakes are not, you know, something that is good on our planet. It seems like it's been here about 4.5 billion years, and we kind of want it to stick around at least the rest of its natural life without speeding up the process any. They're finding out that by fracking, it has caused a lot more earthquakes, and they're centered in northern Oklahoma, like the Oklahoma area, and they're finding out that where there are wells, they're about 10 miles, no further than 10 miles or so away from those wells that they're injecting wastewater into. Just over the last, well, since 2013 to 2014, there were only 7, well, actually there were only 4 earthquakes in the state of Kansas. And that was 3 and under. And that's typically something you don't really feel. They had a 5.7, 2014. They also had 817 earthquakes next year later. So what they're finding out is that they're associating it with wastewater. So anytime that they're putting the water, and it's just normal water that they're supposed to be putting down in there, opening up these cracks, what they're doing is not, well, they're recycling the water, but it's wastewater. They throw extra chemicals in there to, you know, help expand that water. And so they're not only throwing wastewater back down in from the fracking, if that's not enough and they don't have enough volume, because that's what hydraulic pressure runs off of, if you don't have enough volume behind your liquid, it's not going to expand as much. It's not going to open up the cracks or fracture the rock as much. You're not going to get as much oil and gas. So what they're doing is they're also pulling the wastewater from other things, and those other things are from drilling oil wells. So they'll use that wastewater, bring it over to the fracking well, and push it down in there. And that's what's causing these earthquakes they're finding out, is because of the wastewater they're putting down in there. Fracking itself, not really too bad. I mean, it's bad enough that we're cracking our underneath of us, and you know, anytime you do that, it's gonna make your surface unstable. So, I mean, it's just obvious. And then fracking is also associated with sinkholes. Who in the room has heard of sinkholes? Anybody?
Couple of
If you want to go down to Florida and get some cheap property, it seems like Forbes, according to Forbes, the number 1 and number 2 cities to buy property are Tampa Bay and Clearwater, both in Florida. Now, I don't know if it has anything to do with sinkholes, but I don't know if I really want to buy something and then wake up the next day and it may or may not be 100 feet further down in the ground. So there's actually sinkhole insurance you can get. And there's also earthquake insurance in the state of Kansas, now you forget. So there's a lot of things that are associated with fossil fuels, and the bigger picture is fossil fuels. And that's really the biggest picture is what are we gonna do? We know that we can't keep sucking something out that's not being replenished. It's obvious. Once again, it's logic. It comes back to, you got so much, if you keep sucking away something that's not being replenished, that's that. It's gonna end. And so you want something that is renewable, sustainable energy. And so far, all the research and technology comes down to solar. Around this area, solar's not that popular, unfortunately. You know, but this is the sunflower state. So we kind of need to get back to why is it the sunflower state? I don't know if it really has to do with the sunflower itself. Haven't really seen a whole lot growing up. I'm 38 years old, but you can design solar power plants and solar power, if you will, in the same kind of philosophy, and you can have it track the sun just like the sunflower does. It starts in the east, goes down in the west, and those are very efficient solar power plants, and the technology is really, really inefficient, or really efficient, but really inexpensive. And so there's just so many different things out there, really, that we don't have to be doing, but we are doing. And if we could just transition over from a fossil fuel, something that is, you know, having issues with our planet, not just the ground itself, but also our atmosphere, the pollution, and just the waste from fossil fuels as a whole. We can transition from that and still make money in the alternative renewable energy. So that's what I have, and thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, please, I guess one at a time, raise your hand. Yes, Frank?
How much more expensive is it to set up say a solar system big enough to run well, I don't know what you define a small city, but you know, this is definitely small. But I'm talking about, say, a city the size of Hayes as compared to like wind turbines, for instance, or for coal, or for, you know, the coal that it takes to generate the electricity, or the diesel engines, or whatever, you know. I mean, that's
Great question.
That's got a lot of stuff involved there. But
Well, you're absolutely right, and there's companies out there that are actually involved into doing the quotes and to laying out all of the information and just doing the research, and that are actually doing it now. That is something that I'm looking at, getting involved in, and what they're called are microgrids. And so I was looking at small areas, population maybe 500, little towns 500 and down, and getting a couple of acres around that little town or village, as I like to call it when I'm talking to people, and actually set them up on their own grid system, and then go ahead from there, connect each individual village or town, and kind of really start a whole new electrical grid once the grid system we have is about 30% efficient.
one more,
So,
not
great
question,
question.
but comment, is a while back I got this newsletter from Midwest Energy where you had an opportunity to buy up into this huge field of solar panels. It's up here northwest somewhere. I don't know whether it's Rollins County or where it's at, but it's up northwest part of Kansas. And they said it would probably take 20 years to pay back. Well, being that I was like 77 when that happened, I thought, you know, I'm gonna let the younger generation take care of that.
Makes great sense, makes great sense. Investing in it now is not necessarily a bad thing, because you do have a consistent, or at least they should be offering a consistent cent per kilowatt hour. It should never go up, shouldn't ever go up. If anything, it should go down because things get paid off as far as the equipment. I do believe where you're talking is Midwest Energy put a solar power plant up in Colby. It's just on the north side of Colby.
Okay.
And it's a pretty nice one. And it's in what they call let me try that again, an x-axis tracking. And so it tracks east-west. It doesn't do the north-south, and it doesn't do, you know, it just does east-west, just the x-axis. But still a good system. And that's something I would be wanting to do, you know, for the smaller